Hello, who do we have here? Great. Okay, from what I'm seeing, we have quite a decent amount of people here already. And I guess as more people arrive late into the event, they will be assigned. So we might have added friends here. Now, all of you here will stay, so you will get to know each other a little bit more during these discussions. What you will see is that each set of moderators will have sort of some guiding questions for you, and we'll be building up on the input that everyone is saying. So just to introduce you to the room and what we're going to do in this session for the next 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less. So to repeat, my name is Omri Price. I'm the managing director and one of the co-founders of Alliance for Europe. I'm here with Leonardo from Humans and Jan from Pulse of Europe, and together we will be sort of co-hosting this session. And I'll give a bit of an overview and then pass on to Leonardo to add. I'll keep this very short to just a couple of minutes, so then we can really get into the discussion. And maybe in the meantime, in the chat, you can let us know whether you've been in a World Cafe before, whether you've experienced this session in kind of session in real life. Obviously, it's very different doing it online. And we're sort of innovating a little bit as we go, if I may give us some credit. But yes. So Alliance for Europe is a nonprofit organization that started about 2 years ago. We're quite up and coming. We're sort of like a civic startup. What we want to do is to be able to activate citizens towards a sustainable and democratic Europe. And we want to bring together different sectors of society to do this. So the nonprofit sector, media, academia, decision makers, business, and so on. We want to be able to build a large coalition of pro-democratic actors to really shift the direction that Europe is going in, away from authoritarianism and nationalism and towards a more democratic and sustainable Europe, like we said. Now, one of the projects that we're working on that maybe I'll mention later on is the European Hub for Civic Engagement, which is a new digital tool sharing platform, information sharing platform for civil society and active citizens to be able to get involved, share information across Europe, across different issues. So, for example, a campaigner that's working on climate issues in Poland can understand what's happening in Brussels on that issue, can understand what's happening in Berlin on that issue, can set up a new project and get the support that they need, and then maybe connect also with women's rights campaigners working on women's rights and climate, for example. So sharing those kinds of tools. So what we would like to achieve in this session is basically to understand how can we include more people in initiatives like this, like Citizens Takeover, because we are seeing that there are some barriers to entry. Maybe you need a master's degree in politics and maybe you don't have one. Maybe you're busy working as a bus driver or an engineer or anything else. Maybe you just haven't really thought very much about the European Union, and why should you really? And how do we get you involved? And then, what can civil society actors do together to get more impact? And how can we share those tools? What kind of tools and innovations are out there that we can share that can accelerate and increase our impact? So with that, I'll be quiet and I'll pass on to Leonardo to talk a little bit about participatory democracy and the work that they've been doing, to give you a bit of a taster about what we're going to be discussing. So Leonardo?
Thank you very much, Omri, and very nice to meet you all. As Omri said, I'm an Italian activist from Humans. and I'm a campaigner, I'm a fundraiser, and as an activist in human, I'm following all the debate at the European level and at the national level on AI. Of course, AI has become one of the major global issues of these years. And yes, of course, we want to see it under the point of view of policy, of institutional debate, but AI can also bring innovative instruments for campaigning as well. So AI is already deeply used in direct marketing, it's used in customer care operations, and in many other profit fields. But as humans and as Associazione Coscioni, that is the Italian organization that developed this tool I'm going to present you, we thought, what if like nonprofits or campaigning could benefit of artificial intelligence? So we launched this SitBot. I will share later with you on the chat. That is a chatbot that tries through artificial intelligence to respond to the main questions regarding participatory democracy. From the European level to the national level, we try to get in touch with as many people as possible with this instrument. So chatbots are a fantastic way to automatize massive communication and to give the activists the opportunity to focus on one-to-one relationships by counting also on the possibility to raise activists, raise volunteers, and raise engaged people through the chatbot. So I will share with you these instruments, and you will also see on the page the emails of humans so that you get in touch with us if you're interested in developing these instruments, if you have also any recommendation for these instruments, or if you also want to contribute with some more response regarding, for example, your country or your own experience. Of course, it's a very, very first version of this bot, so the algorithm has to be trained in order to respond properly, in order to improve. So really feel free also to ask your question, and we will get to count on your question in order to train the bot. Thank you very much.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Leonardo. So essentially, now let's just start a conversation. And like we were saying, each one of us here can really shape the discussion. So we're not just observers, we're not even just participants. I think everyone here can be a leader in setting the direction that the conversation is going to go in. Just in terms of sort of rules of engagement, just remember that for everyone to have a chance to speak, we need to have the time for everyone. So try and be concise. Don't speak for too long. Interventions that are longer than a minute and a half, I will kind of try and wind down. So please don't be offended. It's just about trying to create a space for everyone. On the other hand, if you have some interesting work that you are doing, please don't be shy about plugging your work, promoting what you do. We're all here to learn from each other, so you're more than welcome. And then if you want to speak, just write in the chat, put a hand up in the chat, or in the participants box. When you click on that, you can put a hand up. I'm sure many of you have been in many different Zoom calls. So yeah, the first question I think to put out to you is, what are the barriers to entry? If the general public out there, if more people want to get involved in citizens takeover, what is stopping them, and then what can we do to get over that? So I'm just gonna throw the ball out there if there's anyone who wants to kick off the discussion. And otherwise, I'm gonna pick on someone. So maybe Gabriel, do you wanna start? Because you sent me a message, so I'm interested in what you have to say.
Sure. What I noticed is that many citizens are not really interested they don't know how to really catch the topic of democracy and how to discuss about this, because in many countries we saw a rising populism. Many times they connect democracy with politics, and they believe politics is not attractive. So they automatically consider that democracy is not attractive as well. And I think one way to do it is maybe to do unconventional discussions and to bring not the usual suspects, because usually the talks and the conferences about democracy were when we were organizing and inviting maybe politicians to speak with citizens. I think citizens have a lot of expertise and they don't need necessarily always an institutional figure to discuss with. So maybe this could be one of the solutions to make it more attractive. So unconventional formats, unconventional people, and maybe bringing topics that before were not the topics to be discussed. For example, things related to social, cultural, and environmental issues were not so important before. I think people were discussing more economics, politics, how to do public administration or things like that. And now I see a rising concern about health, about environment, about social and cultural aspects, which I think could be more attractive to include more people in the discussion.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for that. And I see in the chat, Cynthia has made a comment. I don't know if you'd like to say something about it. And feel free also to tell us a little bit of where you're from, what you do, and let's bounce it around. So Gabriel, if you have any feedback, feel free to add in the chat, and we can also rotate to more speakers. So Cynthia?
Well, yes, thank you very much. I am actually from the United States. I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm grateful that you set up this forum. And I am one of the organizers at agora-ilp.org and Citizen Assembly, where we bring people together in a format just very much like this, but it's moderated so that you know people don't get carried away with themselves as politics and divisive issues can tend to do. And I would definitely like to invite each and every one of you to a citizens assembly so you can actually see what we do. We develop critical thinking skills, we discuss ideas, we get people engaged, and it is a place of intellectual and emotional nourishment, and we have been doing some just beautiful things. I've seen people come to our group who are all jammed up because they've been told that they're crazy or that they're not making any sense. And the problem is they're just not making sense to the people that they're talking to. This provides a forum where they can actually connect with people that understand what they're talking about and are willing to listen to what they're talking about. So please do be encouraged to join us. Thank you so much.
Sure. And am I right in thinking that this is the link that you posted in the chat?
Well, agora-ilp.org is the website. And if you go in and just start looking around, you can see people's ideological profiles. You can open up an ideological profile of your own and present it at a meeting for discussion. The Citizens Assembly is found on Facebook. I will actually get you the actual link. I'm not very tech savvy, so my apologies for that. But I will get the actual link and post it in the chat if you guys if y'all are interested. That would be amazing to have you.
Sure. Yeah, and obviously Citizens Takeover as a coalition is open for more members joining. So if anyone here has an organization that would like to join Citizens Takeover, the coalition, you're more than welcome. And Mick, you have your hand up politely. I see some others. So yeah, go for it, Mick.
Yeah, very briefly, I just spoke, of course, as opening remarks. So happy to see everybody from all over, even from the States. That's super cool to see. I just wanted to say that on the basis of your remarks, Omri, like what we are trying to do with Our Europe is for the first time, like launching a transnational media that really looks beyond borders and beyond the national frameworks. And we are launching a membership campaign to get a lot of people to join and sort of say to all those national media that still, of course, dominates the media landscape across the continents, hey, there is space and there's a need for a truly pan-European and transnational media. So I'll keep an eye out for our campaign, because we need a lot of you to be part of it. Just like, we need a lot of you to sign European citizen initiatives and all these things. This one is really, our campaign is really like by and for the creative sector of Europe, sort of like, from artists to illustrators to podcast makers to journalists to writers. We're giving them a platform in our magazine and beyond. So we really need a lot of you to say, this is what we need. So keep an eye on that in February, because that can also build a democracy, through art and through stories. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll share the link in the chat.
Yeah, sure. So next we have Tony. You said that you have some slides. I'm afraid that we're not going to have time for a full presentation, but maybe you can briefly talk to us about the campaigning approach that you have in mind, and then maybe we can find a different way to distribute slides and so on later on if you like. So Tony, can I throw it over to you?
Thank you very much. Yes, I've sent this set of slides yesterday. Unfortunately, nobody contacted me. I didn't know what is the form of the current meeting. So apologies that I have to summarize what I have in those 7-8 slides. What I believe is that we really have to make some concrete decision on the form of campaigning and the goals. Where do we come from? What is the context? How soon? Schedules and so on. We can't just be sitting and talking. And that's precisely what my presentation is about. How to make it real, fast, with schedule, and also to underpin the conference on the future of Europe. Because this is the best examples how the citizens' assemblies, and I talk a lot in the presentation and my whole website, there's 4 tons of information on citizens' assemblies, how to set it up in concrete terms, and not only citizens' assembly, also citizen chambers. Unfortunately, I don't have time right now, so just treat this as an advert. Anybody that is interested in that kind of ideas, please visit Sustensis website, and I give several links in the chat room so that you can wander over the site as you want. Thank you.
Sure, yes, thanks a lot. I think that indeed we need to get to action, but this is why a session like this is for planning together, so that's highly appreciated. Michael, I'm seeing you, but let me just throw over to Alfayaz, who's also had his hand up, and then I'll come back to you if that's okay. Alfayaz, do you want to take it?
If there's other people who haven't spoke, they can go first, Henri.
Sure, that's very very polite of you. Then Michael, go ahead. Just unmute yourself.
Yes. I'm a member of the London EM25 group. I've been a member for the last 3 years, and we've been studying deliberative democracy in the form of citizens' assemblies. We've made quite a few links with Canada, Agora in Belgium, people that have actually set up citizens' assemblies. And of course, having gone through our pain in the UK of Brexit, it really focused all of our minds on what is essentially missing. And what is essentially missing from parliamentary debate pretty globally is any form of deliberation. And in our group, we've been discussing the pitfalls of party politics, how they fall into camps, how they argue, and there's really no deliberation whatsoever in Parliament. And so we've been arguing for a legally binding second chamber as an attachment to parliaments made up as a citizens' assembly. And when you Google citizens' assemblies, there are hundreds of them all over the world every year, but none of them are a determinant on any parliament. And unless they are a determinant on parliament, then they pass by. I mean, we had one in the UK on climate change in September of last year, but it wasn't binding on the parliament in any way at all. So we've done a lot of work on this. We've invited a lot of people into our group to discuss. Very interesting guy in Canada, Peter McLeod from SLBP, who does a series of citizens panels. They've been doing that since 2007. bringing deliberative democracy all over Canada. And we invited Agora to speak to our group, how they set up their Citizens Assembly. They've got a member in the Belgian Parliament representing their Citizens Assembly in a German-speaking part of Belgium. And we invited them into our group. So, yeah, we've been very active in the cause of deliberative democracy.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Yeah, I'll pass it to Al-Fayaz, and I'll also introduce the question of how can we then create more of that collaboration. After Al-Fayaz, there is Julius, and I also would like to encourage some gender balance in our speakers list. So yeah, let's not just have men speaking, but everyone. So Al-Fayaz?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, it's following on from what I said earlier and some of the comments right now is, you know, one of the key things I want to see is how we can bring the voices of people who are just not represented at all, but who are most affected by the policies and who are, you know, the most reliant on in terms of policies and policy outcomes. And for us, you know, some of my policies have always been guided by, my politics have been guided by having a wide tent approach and really trying to bring the most underrepresented to the table, but also trying to create unusual coalitions. And so one of the things I want to explore or to think further is how can we bring in people from really different backgrounds and bring them in the same and try to see how we can use some of the ideas from these different people. And I think part of the problem in I think with all of these different forms and stuff, we can bring them together. But I think part of the problem is how do you attract them to these sort of events? And I think that's where a big issues around the framing, the narrative, and the communications. Because, you know, as Citizens for Europe, you know, from the outside, you know, it's about how you present that will be important for, you know, the kind of people you get. And you know, to really get a diverse views, diverse opinions, we need to see how we market ourselves and market our initiatives so that, you know, people do want to come and, you know, participate. Because once you get them there, you can get the ideas. But I always think the struggle is getting those people who are a bit more reluctant or who think that, you know, it's a talking shop of the same ideas and trying to get them there. And I think that's where sometimes we're a bit let down. So I'm interested to explore, and I don't know how we do that, but in terms of the communications and the framing and the narrative of how do we attract these people who clearly want to have ideas. And I just end on that is that, you know, the Brexit vote, you had, you know, the Remainers and the Brexiteers, but, you know, you had people with very, very strong opinions on either side. And, you know, but how can you get them in the same place and, you know, facilitate a good discussion that, you know, where we can see how to work together on shared aims. And the problem, I think, is that narrative or that framing of how you get them to the table. That's where the struggle is. Otherwise, they stay in their own silos, in their own groups. So I'm just wondering how we can overcome that.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there, and I think, you know, there's that element of cooperation, collaboration. How do we bring together these unusual coalitions? And Julius, I'm going to throw it to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Julius, and I'm the president since a couple of weeks of the Young European Movement in the UK. And I just wanted to speak in response to Michael before. My role in this setting and at Citizens Takeover Europe is probably to bring in the young perspective, because I think I'm the youngest one or close to that in the group. And I think having young people influence the debate about the future of Europe is something obvious, but it's not that clear. And this is why I'm here, and this is why I would like to get involved with our organization. And I would also sort of emphasize that even though obviously the Young European Movement UK is not an EU section anymore, because we are organized with the Young European Federalists on the European level, which is Europe's biggest political youth organization. We still remain a member of the European community of Europe as a whole, which is why I think it's important for us as young Europeans in the UK to have our stake in the process, and which is why I'm looking forward to any networking opportunities and any future projects that are discussed here, where we could link up with as Young European Movement UK, that are obviously now in a phase of revival and re-establishment, which means a lot of work for us, but also a lot of opportunities, because obviously the interest is very high amongst young people in the country at the moment to join political movements like ours, and in the long run, like Citizens Take Over Europe, when it comes to having an impact and having a say. So this is why I'm here to listen and see what kind of projects you guys present.
Fantastic, thanks a lot. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left of this session. I want to kind of narrow our focus towards concretely how we build that cooperation. How do we share tools? So for example, would an online community work? Would a tool like an AI bot help your work? Is there some kind of communications approach out there that would really enable us to kind of break down these barriers? Yeah, would anyone like to pick up some of these questions and respond to them? And seeing as we've had men speaking in the last several interventions, a non-man would be great. See. Okay, so
I'm going to make an effort.
Go for it. Go for it.
I'm going to make an effort for the sake of women. My name is Danielle Richard, and I'm here in my personal capacity. First, because I find the initiative interesting. Also, because I'm supposed to be involved for the European Parliament as a civil servant in the Conference on the Future of Europe. But I'm between 2 jobs, so I don't have a title yet. Should be something like foresight advisor. So for what I've heard, I'm a bit worried. I mean, first of all, I mean, I have an enormous esteem, consideration for all the work which is done by citizens like you. And I've written myself around the elections, which was a bit daring, on deliberative democracy. But I'm a bit worried that actually I find that all the reactions we're here are somehow institutional. I mean, we speak about participative, deliberative democracy, and that it has not been binding, and so on. But what is it that would help citizens to feel that they're European citizens, to feel that they share challenges for the future? So this is my main question. And in my personal view, again, I'm speaking in my personal capacity. I cannot speak for what the European Parliament expects from the conference on the future of Europe. But in my view, this is the main issue. That's it. So I'm going to stop here, and happy to meet everyone. I mean, I guess that I will have the opportunity in the future, in the coming months, to speak with a lot of you.
Yes, so thanks a lot. I think that this is a really, really valuable point on how we create a sense of shared challenges. This is something that's, you know, a key element here. Now we're going to have to move to the, so what's going to happen, new moderators are going to come in, and I will jump out together with Leonardo and with Jan, and you will have a next session. But Jan, you wanted to say something beforehand, and I think you should.
Yeah,
So
I think thanks Henri for the introduction. I think one of the challenges to political participation, especially for groups which are not usually interested in politics, is that we just don't have path. We just can't communicate to them, not because we don't have the messages, but we don't know how to reach them. And one way to actually tackle this challenge is to approach the friends of those people. And for what we are trying to do with the project I'm working on, which is called European Home Parliaments, is that we are trying to motivate people to actually organize little discussion groups with their own friends. And this way we can approach the people who are actually interested in politics and ask them to actually get their friends who might not be that much into politics involved. And that way we get those people involved in a political discussion. And these discussions will then be aggregated and brought to policymakers, including Ursula von der Leyen, and who has been participating. I'll post the web address in the link in the chat in a bit. But I think through private communication is a way to actually reach out to the people who are usually not participating in politics.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jan. I think we're going to have to move now. But those of you who still want to say something can continue speaking into the next session because you're staying here. We just shouldn't leave the others alone for too long. So thank you very much. And I'm inviting the other moderators to take over. So take care and bye-bye.
Good evening, everyone. For the second round, because our time is really limited,